If every time you bring up getting help, your mom shuts down, this is why. It's not about home care, it's more about independence or the potential loss of independence. It's the concern that her life is getting taken over and her ability to be autonomous is being threatened, right? So I've been in the home care industry for over 20 years, and I've watched hundreds, maybe thousands of daughters have or attempt to start to have this conversation with their loved one and reach a point of frustration because it seems like the same situation is viewed very differently by the two generations where, and then, you could talk about, well, maybe there's a little bit of denial on the older part of the generation. And it's probably very true, but the point being is that there's fear involved, and that fear, whether it's real or not, the perception is real enough to where it tends to kind of lead to a potential of shutdown. So almost all of these conversations that I get to hear about end up in kind of the similar, I don't understand why they feel so frustrated or why they feel so annoyed or overwhelmed at the idea that I want to help or that I want to suggest some help. So just to reassure you, you're not doing anything wrong, and there isn't anything that you could have necessarily done differently to have that conversation go differently. It is just that this issue of aging and the need for help is a very, very personal issue. So when we think about planning, when we think about doing, whether it's saving for retirement or thinking about planning out our retirement, those are much more positive topics that one can sort of daydream about and go, man, if I had a lot more time on my hands, I could be doing these things, or I would imagine doing this. Money comes into that equation because we think about, well, what's my basic necessities that I would need in retirement? And then if I had more beyond that, I could do things, travel, whatever, right? You list those things off. So care or getting help is in a whole different category, right? We don't want to think about, man, when I need help, I would love to have a caregiver, right? Nobody enters into that realm or that conversation or that thought process, right? We just generally don't want to think about the idea that we become vulnerable and so we need someone to help us. So understand that, and understand that your loved one is not spending time thinking about what would this work out and how would this look like. And so you, as you're seeing some of the things change and you're seeing some of the signs, are going, man, we need to talk, we need to have that conversation. But some of that, when you attempt, you're wading into this territory of like, I don't want to go here, I don't want to talk about these things. So keep that in mind, that there's something deeper happening, and that fear that may occasionally show up, it's pushed away because they don't want to really have this thought about, man, I need someone to help me with a bath, with helping me around the home, or taking me to appointments, or doing some of those other things as well. So as we talked about, care or help is something that most people struggle with the idea of accepting, right? And here's another unique aspect to these relationships. So our parents who raised us from when we were young were in this role of helping us to become an adult. And for a large part of our life, we become these peers, right? So even though different ages, but because of the independence of both, there's a unique relationship that's there that functions for a long time. And so as you approach this, where you as a younger generation now are seeing signs that this older generation is going to need some level of intervention, you are seeing them and you're attempting to have a conversation. But having those conversations all of a sudden throws up all sorts of red flags. And so I want to talk about just a couple of them, and for you to understand what's happening, and then how you can reframe the potential conversations, and how do you gain that buy-in from them that this isn't a bad thing, but this is a thing that, just like when you were little or young or somewhere in between, you were dependent on them for support and help, and now there's a point where in their journey it's okay for them to be maybe dependent on you to be assisting them with something. So number one, the loss of independence, right? They're feeling that loss of independence. So the minute you start to bring up, hey, maybe you need some help, maybe you need a little bit of assistance, it's like, whoa, that like kind of hurts, right? Because like when we're independent, we don't need others to help us. Like maybe we do, maybe we need someone to hold a shelf while we're screwing something in, or we need, but it isn't like the dependence on other people is not there. We can do our own things. And so when somebody says, hey, maybe you need a little help, maybe we should talk about getting you help, all of a sudden that independence feels very threatened. So help equals I can't do this anymore. Threatens their identity as an autonomous human being, as an adult who can function on their own and who could do their own things. So kind of the example of some of the language that they may be thinking is that I'm incapable. They're trying to take over. This is the beginning of the end, right? Like I'm like on this decline now. And so when you say you need help, what they may be hearing is that they're losing control, or I'm losing control. I can't handle life anymore. Okay, so number two, there's a fear of becoming a burden. None of us want to feel like other people are having to rearrange their life to allow us to function, right? So becoming a burden on other people. So our parents, your parents, don't want to be in that position. I've heard so many times where somebody will say, well, I had to do these things for my parents, and so when I swore to myself when I got to a certain point, I would not become a burden to my children, right? So it's a conscious thing that they have, that they don't want to burden other people with their needs. So many of them would rather struggle quietly than feel like a burden. So personally, like just full transparency for me, I have an extreme level of this in my own, identity, who I am. Like I really have a hard time asking people to do something that's going to disrupt their life or their routine if it's something that I need a little help with, right? So even again, as a fully functioning adult, not someone who needs a caregiver, but like it's hard for me because I'd rather help others than like ask people to help me with stuff. Okay, so some of us struggle with that, and your loved one may be in that category, so that even amps it up a little bit more. And I think especially in the US, I think we all value self-sufficiency. You hear things like, he's a self-made man, she's such an independent woman, right? Those kinds of statements reaffirm the idea that like I do things for myself. I don't need others to help me succeed or to do things in life. And so asking for help can truly feel like a failure. Like, man, I can't do this. If I have to ask others for help, then man, I'm just really doing something wrong. So in some ways, like that resistance isn't stubbornness, but it's protection. It's a claim on the independence, and it's the protection of the idea that I am a capable human being, right? I'm not someone who needs others to do all these things for me. So that's number two. Number three is there's a role reversal that's sort of taking place, and that is painful, right? So we talked about it as you were the kids or the teenagers or young adults and needing that help and the support from your parents. And then we're peers for a chunk of our life. And then here we are, here's this role reversal. The older generations all of a sudden in a position where they need to be dependent on the younger generation to do some things, right? And it's going to start out with little, and it's going to transition to more and more. So the parent becomes dependent, the child becomes a decision maker, and then it can feel humiliating. It could feel, awkward and like just not the right thing. And obviously your relationship dynamics as peers and adults throughout life will play into this. So someone who had a fantastic relationship, highly trusting relationship, a lot of that is easier because there's already a lot of vulnerability built in and trust in there. But some of you who have maybe had some strained relationships, or maybe you've kind of struggled with being vulnerable and open, and so you come into this space where the older generation starts to be more dependent, and now it's hard, it's awkward because the trust level isn't there. So I mean, let's face it. No parent ever dreams about the day that their kids start to or have to, help them or make decisions for them or start to kind of come in and help them with things in their life. So just to kind of reframe this practically. So instead of you need help or I think you need this, right? Which comes across as maybe slightly demeaning, or maybe even if it's not, even if the tone is great, it can still kind of feel that way. Try something like, I want to make things easier for you, or let's bring a little support so you don't have to do everything. And like, here is the thing, this is about helping you stay in your home longer, right? So motivation, that is a strong motivation. Most of senior adults want to live in the setting they're in. Most of it is in their own traditional single family home. And again, that doesn't matter. It could be in an apartment that they've been in for a long time, but the idea is this is home. And so the idea of extending that and doing that for a much longer foreseeable future is a motivational aspect. And so talking about some of those things. So anyway, so hope this helped you a little bit. And so if you are in the middle of this and having this conversation, first of all, take a breath. Don't feel overwhelmed by the idea that your first conversation that you've had didn't go as well as you thought it would, or wasn't as positive as you had hoped. Know that these conversations take time. You have to have more than one, quite a few more than one, because you have to build some trust around the idea that you're not there to take away their control. You're not there to usurp their independence. You're not there to run their life. You are there to just help them make a good decision going forward, to set things in place that will actually be positive for them and help them as they, enter into the years where depending on someone to help them may be necessary, and that it doesn't have to be a bad thing, doesn't have to be a negative. It can be a very positive thing, and it just needs to be approached that way. So you're not betraying your parent by stepping in and having to have some of these conversations with them. You are there to help protect them from the potential of something worse that can happen, right? We talk a lot about putting in maintenance care and getting a little bit of help before, somebody has some kind of a massive crisis, like a fall can be one of those, right? Obviously, none of us know what happens tomorrow, and somebody could have a heart attack, that could have a stroke. All these kinds of things are potentials, right? And so getting care in place doesn't stop or prevent those things, but it does go a long way in helping someone to make. They've got the systems in place, so if something goes south, there's already a plan there. There's already a caregiver. There's already work being done to help that person be okay. So if you live in that Minneapolis, St. Paul area, we're in Burnsville, and if you'd love to just have a conversation, we help families all the time to just kind of sort through the details of these things and help you to understand that help is available, whether it's us or a different setting or a different provider. We do not push, we do not sell, right? We offer free, no cost, no obligation care consultations to just visit with you and help you to understand what it is that we offer, help provide that expert voice for you to just have a conversation about what could this look like. And then, whether it's something that you think our services could help you with, or if we just help maybe connect you to some other resources, or at least just better educate you as to where you're at and what your journey looks like, we'd love to do that. And we have a ton of resources available on our website, as well as that, we can provide for you, including connection to trusted referral partners. So thank you very much. If this video helped you, please comment. Please let us know if there's other topics you'd like to hear more about. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you, and we will see you in the next one.